think it just does it.
I didn't know that was a thing.
Yeah, no, neither did I. And I just stumbled across it one day. But we're getting new broadband, so that's exciting.
They're going to be super quick.
Yeah, hopefully.
Yep.
Oh yeah, that's cool actually. It's just streaming like all our cameras basically. But yeah, I bought like as a business expense 5G broadband.
Wow, I didn't know that was a thing.
Yeah, so like the fastest 5G speeds in the UK were recorded in the town that I live in, and we don't live too far away from the actual town centre, so although it won't be as good as the speeds that was recorded, even if it's half of that, it will still be like amazing. So yeah, it was recorded at 473 meg.
What? That's crazy.
Yeah, so
what do you do with that much internet?
Yeah, that is a lot of opportunities, isn't it?
I know that was
so yeah, no, neither did I. Jerome, you may have a better idea on how to do this, but I need to like now bond my network connection. So I've got like my normal home on the telephone wire broadband connection, and I need to like merge that into one connection that Unify can then
you need
use.
You need something to sit on it, right? You need a device to sit on the two connections. If you want to route them, you want to bridge it. It depends what you want. Networking.
Yeah, I'd actually read this blog post about this guy who lives in a van in Australia, and he's got like 6 internet connections or something. Like, I don't know why he needs that much redundancy, but anyway. But he uses like a NUC, and then uses this virtual machine called Speedify, or what is it called again?
Well, you're building a router effectively, right? Because you can only send packets to one route ultimately. So if it's redundancy you want, then something just has to provide. Somewhat. You have to send them to them.
Yeah. Well, that's the clever thing about this Speedify thing. Is so there's like multiple settings for it where you can say, do you want it as a redundant internet connection? So it will send a packet to both routers and then get the first one that comes back. And then there's another one that's like, use this connection for this, and like say for streaming videos, but then this connection for like I don't know, downloading or something. Yeah, I'm not quite sure how it works or how I'm going to really work it, but it'll be interesting. I think I'm just going to use a Raspberry Pi and then connect my broadband via Ethernet and then the 5G via Wi-Fi, and then run that virtual machine, and it should work. TM.
Or to seeing you complain about how you don't have any internet on your. Oh no, I accidentally turned my whole house into a black hole.
Yeah, I when I originally got my Unify stuff, I did spend about 2 hours configuring it, and half of that time was just me VLANing myself into a black hole where I couldn't dial out or anything, and it was a nightmare.
Yeah, I used to be a lot more into it. I'm really like, just need the internet to work.
Yeah, I know.
Above all else.
Now,
the most exciting thing I've got is some home plugs, some Ethernet going around the house, maybe.
The only reason I pulled the trigger on it was just because my wife and I, like if we're both on Zoom, they both start to lag. I mean, it's like a 25 meg connection, so it shouldn't be, but it does. And we end up downloading a lot, so I just, it's not really costing anything because the business pays for it, so I don't have to worry about it. It's not me.
Should we get started?
Yes, sorry, I meant to start at 20 past and then we completely blew
people
by
can drop
past that.
in as they go. Am I doing the intro?
Yeah, sure, go for
You do. Oh, I can't. You need to stop sharing.
it. Oh, sorry. Oh, also, this is a very professional meetup. Make co-host. Make co-host.
Amazing.
Awesome.
Right. Cool.
Cool.
Just my notes. Sorry.
You were fired, Foxman.
Switched. I'm trying it out. I'm boring.
How you finding it?
Anyway, it's fine. It's fine. Sometimes things don't work. But yeah, but it's open source. Woohoo! Yeah. Yeah. So hello, welcome to another MidlandsJS. This is September. If you're new to MidlandsJS, or this is your first meetup, we can introduce you to what we do. We're a collaborative JavaScript-based meetup, and we're open to developers from all backgrounds. Mainly, we're focused around JavaScript, but we do a lot of tech advocacy, and we're kind of interested in all things JavaScript and beyond. That's our motto. We're most active on our Slack and our Twitter, so if you're really interested in getting involved, or you're just looking for a techie place to chat and network, do join our community. We'd be very happy to have you. I'd like to take a moment to shout out to our sponsors. Running a meetup takes time and effort. And our sponsors make sure that we've got the tools to deliver the high quality events that you know and love. Nearform, Turbo Technologies, and Pixelbits, they're all local businesses who support us, and we're proud to promote. Being a community meetup, we're always on the lookout for new speakers and new events to run. If you're interested in speaking or you've got an idea you'd like to explore with us, we're all ears, really. You can reach out to us on Twitter, on Slack, or using Josh's email. We'd love to hear it. Yeah, and we can talk you through what's possible. So on to the main event. It's with great pleasure I'd like to hand over for our speaker today, and hopefully we're going to be wowed with the talk. But yeah, let's get started.
Under promise and over deliver, Jerome. That's
Exactly.
my motto.
That's what I always.
Right. So work out how to share the right thing. Okie dokes. Right. Can you see the title slide? Okay, great. Let me get started then. Okay. Well, hello everyone. My name's Laurie, and I'm head of product and UX at Mina Digital, and we create software that helps people charge electric vehicles at home, specifically fleet vehicles. And I'd like to give a talk to you today called The Accidental Product Person. So I will start by asking the obvious question, which is, why am I at a JavaScript meetup talking about not JavaScript? And you know, the answer is the subject of my talk. And I thought it might be something that other people are interested in, just because it's basically I'm just gonna kind of tell a story about a kind of a turn in my career path that I didn't see coming, and I've found incredibly fulfilling. So I've been writing code for the web since 1999 when I was 12 years old. I've done it as my day job, kind of 9 to 5 for kind of over a decade now, kind of coming up to 11, 12 years. And when Katie reached out and said, would you like to come to MidlandsJS to do a talk? I was still writing JavaScript kind of all day, every day, and highly qualified to give a number of talks on that. And since then, I've almost stopped writing any code in my 9 to 5. So I thought that in and of itself was kind of a fairly interesting story. So, and I thought it might resonate with a few people. So I'd like to kind of take you through how that happened. First part of this talk, I'd like to focus on why we code. What is it that drives us towards programming as a discipline and an art form, and all the rest of things, and all the rest of the things we know and love about it. So I mean, well, the first thing to say is that from when I first started making things from the web for the web, we've seen coding kind of go from being this realm of geeks and hobbyists and like a real sort of passionist endeavor. You know, I kind of just, when I was younger, just kind of made just always whatever I was into, whether it was like skateboarding or guitar, it was like anything like that. I always managed to like find a way to like make a website about it or kind of bring in some sort of other like computer geekery into it. So it was always sort of like this side thing. And now, obviously now in 2021, it's potentially, you know, it's a blue chip, potentially highly lucrative career path. And unlike the career paths that you know, were sort of prevalent when we were young, when I was young at least, you know, like law, medicine, aviation, like other kinds of engineering, all of those ones have always, you know, required a formal study and a formal career path that you need, and then you need a bit of paper to say, yes, I can do the thing. Coding kind of completely turns that on its head. And, you know, yes, you can go through a traditional university computer science path, or you can switch careers later in life and go through a boot camp, or you can just teach yourself out from any one of the many amazing resources out there on the internet that kind people have put their time and effort into. But regardless of any of that, regardless of any of the, you know, people might, you know, some people might just want to get into it to make money. Some people might just want to, regardless of any of that, I genuinely believe that people only get into coding if they get a kick out of making things. I think coding at its heart is a creative endeavor. And if you are a developer in any sense of the word, I feel like whether there's kind of big picture end-to-end product stuff, or, you know, ensuring this class you've got perfectly adheres to like solid principles and all the rest of it. I believe that every person that codes just does it for, at some level, the love of making things. And, you know, and for me, product is very similar to part of that love of making things. And I believe that every good developer is really a product person at heart. I don't think every developer should become a product manager, but in terms of those core qualities that make a product person, I believe that the key things that go into being a developer are the same things that go into being a product person. So part two, what even is product? So I've spent quite a lot of time at digital agencies in my career. And from being in a digital agency, so agency side versus like in-house, I feel like you do end up with like a fairly skewed version of what product is. So generally, if you work in an agency, you know, you move sort of project to project, and you do get fully immersed in that. You might spend, you know, like a month, 6 weeks, sort of like really getting your head immersed in a domain. For instance, you know, I've worked on everything from making an ERP system for an Indian water company to, you know, making an iPad app for old people to choose meals in an old people's home. You know, that moving like project to project like that in an agency is so fascinating. But generally it's very different to in-house. So an agency side product owner, if you kind of say you are a product house and you go to an agency, they might have their own product owner that will come and show, they might come with discovery techniques and leadership and, you know, sort of that waving the flag sort of thing. But still in that setup, you're going to need somebody who's got the specific domain knowledge, who is on the client side. Generally, that will be, you know, someone akin to a BA or maybe a product manager or something like that. And then just while I'm on that topic as well, talking of discovery, one of the things that you really refine working at an agency is nailing those discovery techniques. I feel like whenever you've kind of been at an in-house place for a long time, you sort of lose that. You don't lose it, but you are just less practiced at those disciplines of kind of like discovering what the problem is. So if you're going sort of client to client and you're confident and well versed in your tools like business model canvas or user story mapping, or any of those, if you kind of, well, I found that, you know, being agency for so long and being kind of well versed in those has paid serious dividends kind of going into a product house. So to sum up, I feel like in many agencies, product is almost implicit in every role. So you get if you go to a product house and find a developer, they might be very build focused, but in an agency, even your developers seem to end up being quite product focused, just because of the nature of that sort of, you're always building something for something new, and obviously people are paying you a lot of money to do it, so you need to make sure that you absolutely nail it if you want to succeed and get the next project as well. So to contrast that to the experience of the COO, who I report into at the moment, a lot of his career has been spent largely client side, and in his background and his setup, he had lots of product. He was the product director and had lots of product managers, product owners, etc. And the development team there, very build focused. So it's all about the product team will spec it up, and then the developers are they will build exactly what is described. So to sum up, product is a kind of a sweet spot in the middle of the business side, the tech side, and then UX you could potentially just replace with design here, or however you want to phrase it. Tech, you could phrase as dev, but yeah, product for me, and you'll see, this is not my diagram. I've just redrawn it from one that is very prevalent. But for me, it's that sweet spot in the middle. And generally kind of coming into product, having at least two of these circles as being kind of strong parts of your background is incredibly useful. Mine are UX and tech. I've never been kind of a naturally kind of commercially focused person, but it's something that I'm kind of getting more to grips with, and it's definitely something that when you're in-house and kind of get to know the domain a little bit more, you kind of become more well versed in. Okay, so part 3, who would even want to do that, and who can do it? So before I joined my current company at Mina, I was convinced that my career path was going to be either doing like a co-founder thing, hopefully doing something like that. But if I was going to work for other people, I was convinced that I was on a technical career path. And although I have like more of a sort of design and UX background, I pride myself very strongly on my kind of technical side as well. And I was convinced that where I wanted to end up, if you had like a 5-year, 10-year plan or whatever, was going to be a CTO. I was dead set on it. It was like, that's where I want to be. That's sort of my aim. And I remember sometime in 2013, when I was working at an agency, and I remember hearing one of the senior devs talking to one of the project managers there about kind of this passion for agile and kind of all the moving pieces and watching work flow through the board and everything like that. And this senior dev I really looked up to this person. And I remember thinking as he was saying this, I was like, who on earth who is coding all day would rather spend more time in Jira? That's like absolutely nuts. Like, I just don't get it at all. Like, how could anybody want to not code? How could anybody want to do more stuff in Jira when they could be coding? That seemed like absolute insanity. So, I love coding. I love, the feelings of getting things right, the success, the failures, even stuff that I used to kind of groan at, like setting up really neat test fixtures and all of that. You come around to, coming to Mina, I was very sort of, I was a principal UX developer and still very doing my sort of design, UX, interaction design and front end development as well. I couldn't foresee a future definitely where I would want to do that, but it's funny how things turn out. So who can be a product person, I guess, is another question. I do think, as I explained, having the 3 circles of design, tech and commercial, kind of commercial awareness. I think having 2 of those is really helpful, but sometimes it is just a knack of like knowing what you want to put in people's hands. And that's, it's that same sort of core thing that a lot of people kind of use to get into coding. It's being able to create something that you put into people's hands and they go, oh, wow, that's great. I don't know. It just, you never kind of get over that feeling. So for me, I've got 2 people on screen here. I don't know if if any of you watch YouTube or into kind of tech channels or anything, these are two of the most kind of famous ones going, Dave 2D and Marquez Brownlee. And these people are not product people. They're not, you know, they don't make products or invent products. They're video editors. These guys kind of have made a success of themselves because they know how to film stuff, and they're really good presenters and good at lighting and, you know, all that sort of stuff. But they get products, they get that commercial bit, they get the design bit. And, you know, deep down, either of these two people could walk into any one of the companies that, you know, they review products for and land a job as a very high level product person, because they just get it. They get that kind of that consumer focus, and have seen enough of these things that they can articulate, you know, what the market wants and what the market needs. And the same thing is true in software as well. Okay, so I thought I had more notes than this. So chapter 4 was, I think I might like to do that. So when we started Mina, it was we started Mina, I'm not one of the co-founders, but I'm one of the first hires. And there was just 3 of us in the dev team to start with, super small, but we were all like quite senior, like well-seasoned developers. And it was really liberating, you know, just working in a really small startup culture. We're formerly, a lot of us formerly agency side as well, which gives, I don't know, it puts a different spin on things. And, you know, I felt like we were experienced enough to self-organize. We could produce good work quickly. We could get it through, and, you know, we could rapidly sort of iterate on stuff. And that works up until a point where the team basically grew. And I would say anything more than 3, and it's probably, especially if you're having like different levels and you're doing sort of mentoring as well. It's not just kind of 3 kind of leads going off and doing stuff. So at that point, we sort of became quite aware that we had a product shaped hole, and I'd kind of said, look, I don't know, I was lucky enough in many of my previous roles to work with, you know, some of the best sort of Scrum people, Agile people that I've ever come across. And so namely one of those is Chris Roberts, who's the founder of Nimble approach, who I'm lucky enough to call a friend. And he was genuinely the best, the best product and Agile person that I've ever worked with. Unfortunately, he doesn't do it anymore because he's a CEO now. But I feel very lucky to have got to learn from him while he was at the top of his game, kind of doing that sort of stuff. So having been in that sort of position, I wanted to bring a lot of those tools and techniques over. So I started kind of dedicating more and more of my week to speccing stuff up. And it just started out kind of, you know, writing stories and setting up boards and that sort of thing, and then sort of turning into, you know, let's do discovery sessions with customers and the business side of things and look at kind of what's going to be commercially viable, and look at revenue forecasts and all that sort of thing, and what we can build at the right time. So fairly kind of soon after that, I kind of felt like I got to a point where, you know, I felt like I was pretty good at doing it. And actually, it was really, really fun. And we needed to grow the team. And we had the opportunity to hire some really, really good front-end developers and designers who would kind of take over what I was doing before. And that's sort of how I ended up being kind of just head of product and UX. So I think initially I wasn't sort of anticipating I thought I could do it at the same time as still being on the Scrum team, which was, very, very optimistic, and is not the case. It turns out kind of doing the head of product stuff is really like a 50-hour-a-week job, kind of minimum, and actually kind of contributing to the code base is not a possibility. So I just wanted to so I guess I just want to give you an idea of kind of what do I get out of it. So I was going to use this analogy that I think it's where did I come? So Next.js. If you go on like the Next.js website, Next.js they use an analogy called the pit of success, and you know the the antonym to that is the pit of despair, which people often cite when talking about C++, which is known as one of the greatest second system effects languages going. So, people pick up C++ and it seems like everything it does, everything this language is designed to do, kind of is there to try and trip you up, to try and make you try and make the code that you're writing worse and worse and worse. So you get to the bottom of this pit of despair, and you feel like everything is just sort of working against you. So when Next.js talk about it, they've said, look, we want to create a framework which is the opposite. It's the pit of success. The framework itself has a gravitational pull where everything it does just pulls you towards a really elegant solution and a maintainable code base, and you don't have to do workarounds because it's predictable. And I think the same sort of thing can be said from a product team as well. And this is so again back to that sort of the core love of creating things and putting things in people's hands. Even if you're not writing the code yourself, it's hugely gratifying to be able to create a culture, an environment where you see people who are amazing at what they can do being given the tools and environment that they need to be able to do that. So as an example of sort of a pit of success from a product perspective, if you've got your dev team here, if you were to think about the opposite of everything that you've built in a team where it's all kind of seemed to go wrong, it's kind of like, oh, well, the AC wasn't right, or it was written in a way that meant that that this product owner interpreted it completely differently to how somebody else does. And to be able, I definitely feel like rather than taking that sort of technical route, actually learning everything that I've learned knowing everything that I've learned up until now about being on those teams and what trips you up, what makes you fall into a pit of despair, and what can create a pit of success. It's really empowering to be in a position to create that environment. So if we've got a dev team here, these are just some examples. So you pick up a Jira ticket and the designs are amazing. They're world class, and you're immediately giving, if you can give a developer something that they would love to use themselves, something that's you've done everything right. You've done user research, you've done prototyping and testing. You know that the thing you're going to build is the right thing to start with. There's nothing worse than being given something, this is going to take me 2 weeks to build, and I can already tell the first person to use it is going to need to change it. We've gone through a prototyping phase. The AC on the story is really tight, and all the relevant information's attached. You don't have to go around chasing people, be like, oh, where's that example CSV that I needed to format this data into? We get periodic hardening sprints to pick up technical debt. You're not creating that culture where it's like everything needs to be done yesterday, but at the same time, you still have the impetus where you don't feel like you're, people are slow and just turning up for the paycheck. It's, getting that nice balance between velocity, but not kind of rushing at the same time. And, working in a blame-free culture where it's okay to fuck up, so long as we're always learning, because we all do. And, nobody likes to feel like they have to hide their mistakes, and it's such a dangerous place to get into. And hopefully, these are just some examples. And if you nail all these things from a product perspective, you should be able to deliver exactly what the business expected. And when the business expects it, that's a little bit harder to nail, because we know that estimating is very, very difficult. But it is something that you can iterate and improve on. And that's something that I'm certainly learning at the minute is, trying to, even when you've got a story that is, a 5 in planning poker, just saying, right, can we actually, what more questions can we ask? What can we break that down into? And then finding out that 5 is actually composed of a 3 and another 5, you suddenly can forecast much more accurately. And at least ahead of time that, okay, that is actually going to take this long, we think. So the last bit then is, so what about code? And that's because I love coding. And, I can't not, it's, I know it's I remember, first starting as a developer, it's such a cliche, but it's find a job you love and you'll never work a day in your life. For me, like development has always been that. It's just it's very, very satisfying. And I don't write code in my day-to-day anymore. So my answer to that is a side hustle, and this is where I'm going to use my platform to plug my side hustle and tell you a bit about it. So I've like I say, I don't write code, but I would hate to take my finger off the pulse. Another thing as well, so to be kind of totally candid with you, it's like I've never gone out and got a product job. Like I've never gone and applied for one, so I don't even know like I don't know what to do. It's not, if things were to not go as I hope they will, and if you're talking truly sort of safety net, then I know that I could make a good living kind of going back to doing contract front end development again. So I don't want to take my finger off the pulse. So I don't want to be in that position and then be like, oh right, all my skills are now like 6 months out of date. So I definitely want to kind of keep up with that whilst also trying to pursue a slightly different future. And so part of that has been building something called Dokizen. So Dokizen, I've started with my friend Elliot, and it is we call it's basically SendGrid for PDF. So it's transactional PDF. So we as developers have had an absolute nightmare every time we need to do PDF, because you've got these like HTML to PDF converters, or you've got like this headless browser that you have to go and inject something into, and it's always crap. So Dokizen, you come on, you use our kind of class leading template builder. You can build your template, you can put in merge fields or whatever, and you can create tickets or invoices or packing slips, and you create some really nice templates. Or if you've got a designer who doesn't code, you can give them the template builder, and just come in, and then all you go and do is grab your API key, download one of the SDKs that we've built, and you fire it off and you get your PDF back. So we're going to do like start free for 14 days. Come in and choose your template. So you could get a number of templates, and I'm going to tier the number that you get, and various different sort of enterprise features as well. And then using the template builder, build up your document, whatever it's going to be, and use our sort of docs portal to go and install one of the SDKs. And yeah, that's about it. So that's how I'm keeping it with code at the minute. If you're interested in joining the beta for Dokizen, we're going to launch early 2022, just finishing some stuff off Q4 this year. So give me a shout if you want any early access. Thank you for listening.
Great, thanks for that. It's really nice talk, really well done. Yeah, success. Congratulations. Applause.
Cool. Cheers. Yeah, I'm happy to answer questions if anybody's got any.
I've got one. I'm sure I have one. I was curious if you it's interesting hearing you say that you've come from this sort of slightly more diverse background than, say, your average product developer. Is that product person? I was listening. Is that something like, do you see that as like a common trajectory for developers to go down that route, or is that like, I was kind of interested to hear your thoughts on like where people are coming at it from different angles, or where you think you're. This isn't a very good question, I'm sorry.
No, I think I get what you're saying. So I guess it's the different trajectories into product management. So I think traditionally your trajectory is from a project management background. So you might get somebody that 10 years ago was doing Prince 2, and then they went off and became a certified Scrum Master because that's what was happening at that point in time. And if they were doing that agency side, now they've kind of come through and maybe done one of the more up-to-date courses, so one of those CSPO, Certified Scrum Product Owner sort of ones, and coming at it from that angle. And that's obviously, I'd say that is probably your sort of like more traditional one. And that is your sort of it's about organization, and it's about making sure that everything's in the right place and people are doing the right thing. And I think it's totally valid. And I've worked with some wonderful people who have taken that path as well. And I would say that coming from a technical background gives you a certain, I guess, for want of a better word, spidey sense for what's going on, because sometimes you do end up playing Scrum Master as well, and being able to just hear something and go, hold on, that sounds like that's going to take longer than they think it's going to take, or you just spot something that can be learned through a non-technical background as well. But having that technical foundation gives you a really, really strong ability, and being able to solutionize and being able to offer technical input at the same time as being able to do that product management side is really, really valuable. So I would say of the people I've worked with, sort of in that project management, Scrum Mastery sort of thing, I'd say probably 3/4 would come from a more non-technical background, with a quarter coming from a technical background. And I definitely think that coming from a technical background gives you something else.
That's cool. Yeah, thank you. Oh, sorry.
So I was just going to pick up Katie's question from the chat.
Yeah.
Are there any traits developers often have that might hinder you as a product person? I would say no, because I think soft skills are often really underplayed in developers. I think a lot of people think that a lot of there is definitely a body of thinking that thinks that developers are sort of don't want to talk to people, just want to go down, sit at their computer and write some code, and everyone to go, wow, this person's so clever, they've written this amazing code. And that is certainly one thing. And I think definitely I think development being like a lucrative career has meant that people that want to do that can now go and make a good living. Whereas I honestly don't know what that probably would have led to a very different career path sort of 30 years ago, if that's the sort of personality traits. But I genuinely believe that one of the best traits that a developer can have is communication. I think it all comes down to what an effective communicator you are. How do you work through problems? How do you get through sprint planning and ask questions and all those sorts of things? And those things that make great developers also make great product people. Sam says the stereotypes. Yes, it is. I know it is a stereotype, but it's not true. Obviously, every human is a human in and of their own right. And I guess, yeah, if we were to come up with any sort of typical traits of developers, I mean, I think all of the traits I associate with developers are, methodical, attention to detail, logical, and yeah. Oh, the only thing I could maybe think that not maybe hold you back, but at least you just sort of have to get out of your own. You have to sort of get out of your head is like, how's it going to be built? Because sometimes you need to think about like, what is it going to do? What's it going to do for the person, without jumping quickly to, hold on, I know that won't talk to that thing over there, and I know that this won't integrate with those things there. Because sometimes you do need to have a product vision. You need to be able to just at least put your blinkers on and not think about implementation for a moment, and just sort of focus on how are we going to solve the problem regardless of tech. And then once you've got to what that solution is, then you start to work backwards and solve those problems along the way, rather than thinking of them too early.
Got another question from Katie. She says, if someone had wanted to go into product straight out of uni, what would you recommend they do to prepare for interviews in the role?
That's a really good question, and probably one I'm totally unqualified to answer, because I've never hired a product person. I've been in plenty of developer interviews. So let's work backwards and see if I can come up with something that will help with this question. So, wanted to go into product straight out of uni, what would you recommend they do and prepare for the interview? So straight out of uni, I would say if you've done, I mean, I always think, yeah, most of the people that I have interviewed have come out of uni having done computer science or software development. So I would guess that in order to prepare for the interview, I would probably watch, there's a publication on YouTube called Mind the Product, which is an absolutely kind of wonderful resource. They have they try to sign you up some insanely expensive subscription for a lot of the content, but there is some free stuff out there. So I would try and study some of those. I would look into, I would research techniques. I would research discovery techniques. So I would read User Story Mapping by Jeff Patton, and I would read, User Story Mapping by Jeff Patton, and I would read Measure What Matters, the OKR's sort of Bible by John Doerr, and I would research the business model canvas or lean canvas ideation technique. And I think taking those to an interview with any degree would, if a graduate showed up to me having read those things and having done those things, they'd probably get a job.
Cool. Well, unless anyone's got any other questions, I think we can wrap it up there. Thanks to everyone for coming, and thank you, Laurie, for your fantastic talk and your insight into products, because it's been really interesting to hear from people who are in slightly alternative backgrounds than hardline development. But yeah, thanks a lot.
Well, thanks so much for having me. I really appreciate everybody who's listened. So thank you.
Great. Okay.
Sorry.
Oof. There we go. This thing.
Sorry, I just noticed that my face was being broadcast on the YouTube, and I was just not saying anything. I was like,
There
oh,
it is. I
turn
can't
that off.
get off the.
Oh, it's really cool. Thanks, Laura. It's really interesting because it's one of those roles that, I don't know, like coding, you just see all the courses and loads of resources, but actually when you're like, oh, okay, so I want to go into product, what do? I don't know, it's just not the same. I mean, maybe there is. Maybe I've just not seen YouTube videos on it, but
yeah, it's a different way to look at it. It's actually really interesting what the so since I changed my job title on LinkedIn, all of the creepy ads that you get everywhere have totally changed. So I now get one for so as opposed to getting developer ones, I now get product person ones. So there's the market that I'm trying to aim for with Dokizen actually is what's known as B2D, business to developer. And when you look at the different personas that are in that purchase making decision tree, you've obviously got your developer, who's the evangelist, who finds the tool and goes, oh, wow, this is great. It's going to make my job so much easier. They then have to go to probably a development team lead who says, right, we need to check this thing out. We're going to save loads of time. But it's $50 a month. That then goes to probably somebody else who then eventually makes that purchasing decision. So sort of mapped out, each one of these people, and it's literally within the week of changing it. All of my YouTube video ads, I started getting this SendGrid one that was the first thing. It was what do developers build with SendGrid? How about a password reset email that gets sent out to help them build? It's that's mad. That's absolutely mad that they've kind of focused on this and be but yeah, that is exactly what somebody who does what I do now would want to see, to go, oh, right, great. This is going to make the product better if my developers use it.
yeah, that's really interesting. Yeah, I get so you want to be a game developer from Udemy? Great. Thanks. But yeah, that's really interesting. I thought about that. Well, that's really cool.
Cool. Bounce, I think. So see you guys later.
Cool.
See you later.
I'm going to go too. So thank you for having me. Cheers, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Sorry. See you later.